So if everyone's okay, I'm going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jamie with SymTrain, and very excited to have you here for the session today to know 10 tips to creating better sims. So there's probably a lot more than 10, but we're going to focus on what I think are some of the best 10 tips. So if you guys have questions during this session, please put it in chat. I'll pause from time to time, and you can actually ask your question and go off mute and ask your question if you'd like to as well. And at the end, we're actually going to do a quick survey. We want to continue to create tips and tricks each week that with topics that you all care about and really would be interested in. So stay tuned for that. And with that, I'm going to share my screen and get started. So going to make sure everyone can see my screen once I share it. And can we see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. All right. Well, again, welcome. And this week we're going to go over 10 tips to creating a better sim. So who wouldn't want to know that, right? A lot of effort goes into creating these curriculums, whether for assessment or onboarding or coaching. And I just thought it would be fun to really just talk about not only what these tips are so that you can have different ideas, but also to show you what it can mean to your metrics by doing it. So I have a lot of experience with SymTrain as a trainer with users, and some of these things are things that I've learned firsthand. Also, some things that I've learned from other people as well as I've gone along. So you can imagine. So I did want to start with metrics, right? It's where it all counts, right? This is what makes it all matter. So better sims will definitely improve your metrics faster. And these are just some of the metrics that will definitely be impacted. So average handle time, conversation and process efficiencies, making sure that users know the correct structure of the conversation. And I like to say it that way because it's not like making a robot, right? No one wants to be a robot. But again, learning the best way to handle certain conversations, how to focus on sense of urgency without rushing, things like that. Average handle time can definitely be impacted by really creating your sim in a certain way. Training time, let's face it, less repeating what we're saying and having them just do it. That's how people learn. People learn by doing. It's more fun too. I've definitely done trainings where I just had a PowerPoint before SymTrain, and when I had SymTrain, I was like, where's this been my whole life? Because again, at some point, people say, I just want to get in there and do it. So this is a great, it definitely will impact your training time. Time to proficiency. I always think of SymTrain as a tailor-made training for every learner because everyone learns the same. Everyone maybe has areas of their conversations they have over the phone, their processes that they do either on the phone or on the back end that, everyone just has a different, they're gonna need practice in different areas. SymTrain allows them to really focus on those areas, and especially if you create a sim that way so that they can feel comfortable doing something over and over and over and over, just like people do in sports, right? They do it over and over. They don't play the whole game just to get to the part where they kick the ball. They practice just kicking the ball. And then when they feel really great about it, they play the game. Same thing here. Coaching now has a structure. I don't have to say it to you guys or to myself either. Coaching is an art. And really being able to coach effectively and have it be consistent among a team is really important. So SymTrain gives you that structure. Learners become a self-assessor of how they can be great. I learned this firsthand. When they're able to see that playback, how they sound, and all you have to do is say, how do you think you sounded in that practice? Because knowing that you're going to practice this, you're going to do this the way you practice it. And most of the time say, oh, I heard it, right? Nothing says it more impactfully when we hear it with our own ears. And then compliance and conversion rates improve because practicing until they're proficient, right? Kind of going back to being able to practice the parts that learner needs to practice to get proficient with the whole thing. And so these are some of the metrics that I want you to keep in mind as we go through the tips. So we're going to go tip by tip. And if you guys have anything to add, please do. So tip one, break it down. Complex processes and conversations need more practice. Now I understand, I mean, we have the ability to make beginner, intermediate, and advanced sims. We also have the ability to make moment sims, so coaching sims. And let's face it, maybe for every sim you have in your library, maybe you don't, you're not going to make a coaching or a moment sim for, but for it, simulations for processes that really people are struggling with, I think that's a good place to start. And really breaking it down, breaking it into that intro, in just each part of that sim, the beginning, the kind of like the getting to know what they called for, solving the, finding a resolution for why they called, and then the closing. So whatever those parts are, and you might have a lot more, breaking them down into those little moments so that they can practice it over and over is just everything. Because that's how people will learn it. Learners are more likely to do it over and over if it's short, right? And just being able to get great at that one part. And again, that's what creates that muscle memory. I don't know, and I can only speak for myself. I know that I would have to do something a few times to get proficient with it. And some processes are just longer. There's nothing you can do about that. But we can maybe identify those areas where people are struggling and then create that moment sim. So break it down. Tip two, have fun. This is my favorite one. And you guys might have some great ideas about this too, but people are just more likely to want to do something if it has an element of fun. And I get it. Sometimes in our jobs, it's not always fun. And but I think we always have to take time to try to make what we can fun, especially for learners. So I was thinking about, in movies where they will put a little Easter egg into the movie and you have to find it, and it's fun to kind of see what you can find, what they were trying to say, in a way. And I was thinking, what if you did that with a sim? That would be kind of fun. Maybe it's a new process that your company is implementing, a new tool, or whatever that is, and just maybe finding a way of saying, hey, there's a Easter egg in this sim. Who can find it? And I was thinking that would be kind of fun because I love that when it comes to movies. Creating a competitive spirit. I've done this myself and said, you know what, whoever can practice this the most times, and get the highest score, and be able to attain a certain score in the quickest time they'll have bragging rights for this. Really, people are driven by competitiveness, and the great thing about this is it only helps them, right? It's only going to help them learn this faster. And I've seen this with teams where the goal was for them to practice as much as they could, in the before the next class, and people really grab onto that because they think, okay, I can do this, I can do it, I can do it the most times. So it really can impact the learners in those classes. Usually what I find, and what I have found, is that the people who really commit and practice more obviously become proficient faster. Use humor in your sims. And I don't know if Jenny, one of my clients, is on the call, but she had created a couple sims, and I wrote her right away. I says, I laughed out loud. Like, it was just silly. It was funny. But when you think about humor, sometimes if you put that in a sim, and I get it, some sims it wouldn't be appropriate, but thinking in where it would be, if you add that humor, sometimes that can be what they remember, and that can trigger the process. So I think humor is really important. And like I said, I laughed out loud. I just thought it was silly and cute, and really made that simulation memorable. And I could probably tell you what that sim was still about. And I was just thinking this, and I added this just not too long ago because I was thought about this. Actually, I think I dreamt about it, but imagine using an overview video, kind of like before a game, how the coach is saying, pump everyone up and the music is loud, really gets people pumped up. Well, imagine being able to make an overview video, have a coach or a manager create it with the music blaring and have them say, okay, we've got a new process, we've got a sim made for it, and get them all pumped up to be able to try this new sim and be able to learn it. Talk about making it memorable and fun, because everybody loves that. It really kind of makes you feel like, this is great. The possibilities are endless with SymTrain, truly. So make it fun. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to take a little break and see if there's any questions. So explain why. I've kind of learned this too, and this to me is especially important with tenured agents, because new hires, they're all learning something new. So they feel a little bit more comfortable asking questions, because everyone, if I know sometimes it's not this way, but most often new hires, there'll be people asking questions. It's a new process. They're learning it for the first time. I would hope they'd have questions. But tenured agents sometimes think, oh, I've done this forever. I don't want to ask any questions. But explaining why. Sometimes processes change. Sometimes there's a need to do something in a different way. No harm, no foul. It's a change. But explaining why that's important. And what I think about most often is when they have to check another system before they continue with a call, explaining kind of why that's important. Why is it important for me to check there if I've been doing it for 10 years, right? It does have an importance, or it wouldn't be there. And explaining why can just make them go, okay, I get it. And again, I think I covered all the rest of those. Coaching tips are a great way in SymTrain to explain the why. Not just why they're going to click here or click here, but explain why it's important, why it's necessary, so that they can, in their own mind, it can click and go, okay, I get it. Do you guys have any questions? I wanted to take some time here and just pause for a second. So far, so good? All right, remember you've got the chat too. All right, 4, branch it. I don't know how many, and I would like to hear from someone, how many people had used branched sims in SymTrain? Or raise your hand. Branch sims, okay. So branch sims are amazing. Right now it's a random branch sim, which is awesome because it's really how, if you think about it, how someone does a process. So right now in SymTrain, you can make a random branch sim. What that means is that you can basically add different scenarios, different scripts into one sim. It's a great way to get a lot of information, a lot of different scenarios in one place. And as the learner executes the sim, each time SymTrain will randomly choose a branch for them to do. So it not only gets them to practice and learn how to have these different conversations. So objection handling, for example, is a great use of a branch sim. Certain conversations that have set answers, that maybe they have a book of those answers, but again, it's so much more confident having practiced what those conversations sound like, and it becomes much more comfortable for the learner. But random branching, each time it will give the learner a random branch to do. You can actually name each branch with the name of what it is. So then in reporting, you can tell which branch they executed, because if there's 11 branches, they would have to do it 11 times to be able to get, to get most of those done. I've actually tested it. It's pretty true to form. I had 12 branches. I did it 12 times. I got 11. Only one time I got the same one twice. So it's really a great way to learn that. But what it also does, and this is what I love about it, it allows the learner to get this particular question at random. They don't know until they do the sim what branch they're going to get. And this is really helpful because that's the anxiety part of it, not knowing, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer the question. And that makes people anxious. So branch sims are great. And we're going to do a session on branch sims because they are really simple to make. Right now they're for audio, but there is a lot more to come with branching at SymTrain in the near future. So keep an eye out for that. But what it is today is incredible. It really is. It really allows them to learn things quickly and get a lot of experience with different scenarios. Tip 5, involve the users. I know that I've done this myself as a trainer. I have asked people, I said, so what are you struggling with? What conversation really gets you? And they told me. I said, can you write it down? And or can you record it? And they're like, yeah, bam, there's a sim. Having them get involved with what they need to learn is great. And it really allows them to know that we want you to be great at this and we want you to be so comfortable with it. And this tool allows for that. And, no one knows better what they need to practice except for them, right? They might be struggling with something that they feel like they should be better at, and creating that safe space and say, look, this tool is for you to learn. It's like a tailor-made tool for you. And we wanted to have curriculum in here that will help you. So that's always a great thing. What I also say too, and I always say this too, I always say in trainings, if you ever have a question, ask the question, because there is someone else having that same question that you're actually doing them a favor by asking it. So same goes here. If one person is struggling with something, there are other people who are or will struggle with it. So it's a sim worth making. And then having learners who have great adoption of SymTrain and get great scores, have them talk, maybe at a meeting, just say, have them talk about how they use the tool. How do they implement it into their day? To be able to improve how does it improve their confidence? How has it changed how they learn and how they feel about what they're doing? This really brings a human part to their learning. And what I always find is that people always love hearing what other people in the same role struggle with and how do they improve it. This is a great tool to utilize for that, because some people just think, oh, I'll do it because you told me to do it. But it's more than that. They can own this. They can really be in a safe place to be able to get great at all of the things that they need to know. So involve the users. Strategic alternative words. So you all know in SymTrain, when you build a script, you have keywords within the script, the structure of the conversation, and you can add alternative words to some of the words there. You can also make negative keywords for things maybe you don't want them to say. For example, if you don't want them to say an acronym, right? Make that a negative keyword. So if they say it, they'll get docked a point. But using strategic alternative words, just kind of like I always say, unless it's a compliance statement where they have to say it word for word, and that happens a lot, and that's important. I personally think it's good to kind of let them know, put in a coaching tip and say, this next script line has to be memorized. It is a compliance statement. It is necessary that you say it word for word, right? So they understand. And then once they do it a time or two, they'll know, okay, I've got to really, I have to say this word for word. There's no ad-libbing here. Being really clear about that. But being strategic with your alternative words. If every word is important, and in a compliance statement it is, but beyond that, if every word's important, then none of them are, right? And so strategic alternative words has the same meaning. The alternative words are really important because it allows them to have a bit more flexibility, more natural in their delivery of what they're saying. Again, it's not about making them a robot. It's about giving them a structure so they can learn how to have this conversation in the best way and how to navigate through these conversations and through screens in the best, most efficient way. And really, it teaches them the importance of certain words and statements, right? This is why this is important, and allowing them to know which phrases, which words have more flexibility. and why certain words and phrases don't. Again, kind of the why there too, but strategic alternative words. They can really be important to them being more flexible with how they deliver, but also maintaining that correct structure in different ways. So 7, make it conversational. I love this. So creating small talk where it's appropriate for conversation, because that's what makes it real. Now, for example, and this kind of goes with my next tip hand in hand, when you creating small talk in these conversations is important. If someone is mad, if someone is sad, obviously small talk will be different, right? But it doesn't mean it can't exist. It can create an empathy. It can create the right type of empathy for that conversation. So always knowing and learning that small talk and being able to make that customer feel or patient feel comfortable with what you're conveying is really important. And again, that's what SymTrain's all about. It teaches you how to do it the right way. Teaching how to be personable, relatable, but keeping them focused. We all know that sometimes people get on these calls and they are just talkative. They just want to talk. Well, when you're a caller, you've got other things to do. You've got lots of calls to take. You have an average handle time to keep. So being able to learn how to maintain a conversation with the person on the other end, but also keeping it focused. So conversational can really help with that. I always think of sense of urgency versus rushing. And one of the main things with confidence in SymTrain is affected by rushing through something. Whenever I get a low score on confidence, I go back and I listen. I'm like, yep, I was rushing. It's a very common thing. And so I think learning how to make things conversational is important, but in the right way. So with that breath, I'm going to go here. Making it, make them emotional. Make your Sims angry. Not everybody who calls is happy, right? And those are the conversations that are hard to have. They're the ones that they can stump us, right? And so let them practice those. Make sad Sims. Sometimes people call and they have been through a tragic event that we as humans could never imagine. So learning how to have that conversation is really important. Have anxious Sims. Make customers too talkative. Have them learn how to be conversational, but keep it focused on why they called. And again, teaching them the words that associate with the response they need to deliver. And that is so powerful when you're able to match those words to the emotion of the person calling. That's really powerful for not only the customer, the person calling, but for them. I mean, that's like the best feeling ever when you know that you did that so well. That is what SymTrain teaches. It's so great. Empathy, urgency, confidence in the right way really can help and can add some diversity to simulations, because we have a lot of processes, a lot of things that have to be learned, but being able to make different emotions for them is really, really important. So 9, computer voice versus real voice. My alarm's going to go off here because I set it so that I wouldn't miss miss cutting off. So computer voices versus real voices. I know that a lot of times we don't have the opportunity to be able to voice everything in a simulation. I get it. But when I do a simulation, even with that computer voice, I try to use my inflection. I try to think about, okay, everybody who I talk to on the phone has a different voice. They all have different tones. So I try to think about that computer voice as just being, another person I'm talking to that has a different inflection than I do. But it allows me to kind of work on my inflection for this and focus more on the words of how I need to sound, my inflection in the simulation. And again, the computer voices can teach that too, because it's about the words that they're saying and how we need to respond to the words and the emotion of those words. And so, I don't know, thinking about the computer voice that way kind of helps me focus on how I'm delivering the message. And then I think a great way I think a really great use of the voiceovers is for humanizing the sim, doing coaching tips in a real voice. Is real voice always going to come across, completely authentic? However, I have had people say, oh, the voice was robotic, but it was a real person. So, again, I think focusing on how we learn the words and the emotion of that sim and using that computer voice to help us do it. And lastly, most practice sims. You have, again, in reporting, you can see what sims are the learners really practicing and on their own direction. So maybe said they had to do it this many times, but they did it a lot more. That can be a good indicator to a great sim. So look at that sim. What do you think? Why do you think it's good? Ask them. Why do you do the sim? What makes you like this sim a lot? And because the thing about it is if we can, again, look at what people really enjoy doing in that process and learning, oh, maybe I need to break this one down. Well, maybe I don't need as many coaching tips that it tells me in the script what I need to do and things like that. So most practice sims can actually be a good indicator to what you can mimic in all of your other sims. So those are the 10 tips for creating better sims. And I want to kind of we have a survey that I'm going to have Anne put on the screen now. And if you guys wouldn't mind taking the time and responding to that, so we can get some more information. And also, at any time, you can reach out, Jamie@SymTrain.com. You can reach out to any of us here. And if you could let us know topics that you would really like to hear about, and I'll create a session for it. And I'll get the best person at SymTrain to deliver that message to you, because it won't always be me. Because that's what we really want to make sure that we're getting across in these sessions, things that you want to hear about. I have a list of things, but I care about what you care about. And that would be great. Any other questions while you guys are responding to the survey? All right.
Hi, Jamie. Will you be sharing the deck that you have presented today?
I absolutely can. I will give it to marketing and they will put it. So there'll also be a recording of it too that they'll send out, and they can send this out. Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
So Jamie, on the branching sims, do we have an idea on when it will become available for all the different types of sims and not just audio?
That is hopefully in the near future. I will take that as a takeaway, and I'll get that information from product. But yes, it is on the roadmap, and we want to make it for, like, as you say, for visual sims. And
Yes, ma'am, because we use visual sims for a lot, but like when you were talking about it, I was like, ooh, I don't have to make 5 different sims. I could just do one. But when you
Right.
said it was only for audio, I was like, okay, can't do that yet.
Yeah, a workaround today would be to make that audio sim with the branch sim, and then make your navigational sim, put that into a module and training plan, and that way. So it would still be 2, but it would be learning the conversational parts, then learning the navigational parts. So today, that's what I would recommend doing until we get this, and then because that would break it down for them, and it could be beneficial until we get the visual elements in there. But thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We will keep it right at 2:30. Let us know if we're all here for you. Everyone here at SymTrain. So thank you so much for attending, and looking forward to next week. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.